Hello, and welcome to this commentary for Resident Evil Director's Cut, playing as Jill Valentine. I'll see you after the intro.
Alpha Team is flying around the Forrest zone, situated in northwest Raccoon City, where we're searching for the helicopter of our compatriots Bravo Team, who disappeared during the middle of our mission.
Found it? No, I haven't found it yet.
Bizarre murder cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City. There are outlandish reports of families being attacked by a group of about 10 people. Victims were apparently eaten. Bravo Team went to the hideout of the group and disappeared.
Look, Chris!
It was Bravo Team's helicopter. Nobody was in it. But strangely, most of the equipment was still there. However, we soon discovered why.
Hey! Come here! No! Don't go! Jill, run for that house!
Chris Redfield. Jill Valentine. Barry Burton. Rebecca Chambers. Albert Wesker. Resident Evil.
What is this? Wow, what a mansion!
Captain Wesker, where's Chris?
Stop it! Don't open that door!
But Chris is...
What is it?
Maybe it's Chris. Now, Jill, can you go?
I'm going with you. Chris is our old partner, you know.
Okay, let me handle this. Stay alert!
So if by some miracle this is the first time you're experiencing this game, yes, the voice acting is that bad. No, it doesn't get any better.
A dining room. What? What is this?
What is it?
Blood. Jill, see if you can find any other clues. I'll be examining this. Hope this is not Chris's blood.
So yeah, despite the fact that he's obviously not in any way, shape or form a forensics expert, he's going to be examining, quote unquote, the bloodstain, which seems to be putting his fingers in it over and over again. Not sure what he's attempting to do there, we're just going to leave him to it. Move down and move over to see our first zombie. So when playing as Jill Valentine, the best way to deal with this guy is to just run the fuck away, and you'll see why in just a second.
Barry?
What is it?
Watch out! It's a monster!
Let me take care of this. What is it?
Kenneth was killed too. Maybe by this creature. Anyway, let's report this to Wesker.
So yeah, by not fighting him straight away and just running back into the room, we can have Barry Burton here be able to take him out with his Magnum, although he requires several shots. And it just means we can save a little bit of ammo, and we want to save as much ammo as we can in this game.
Wesker! Help me look for him, Jill. And don't leave this hall for the time being.
See, this is kind of a weird part, and a lot of times when I was younger, I just got stuck here. What you have to do is go under the stairs, do a loop, and then he'll talk.
Find anything, Jill?
Nothing. What all about? I can't figure it out at all.
Beats me, too.
Now it's Wesker's time to disappear. I don't know what's going on.
Well, it can't be helped. Let's search for him separately. I'll check the dining room again.
Okay, I'll try the door on the opposite side.
This mansion is gigantic. We could get into trouble if we get lost. We should start from the first floor, okay? And... Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Thanks. Maybe I'll need it.
Listen, if something happens, let's meet up in this hall. This time, I'll be there.
So after we've had this little conversation with Barry Burton, we're finally free to explore the mansion at our leisure. But I would recommend that the first thing you do is follow what they said, which is to check the doors on the opposite side of the dining room. There's a few reasons for this. I think it's the most expedient way to kind of go around the house, and also there's a few cutscenes that need to be done in a certain order to get the best results. So there was a map in that statue, which you can push the ladder to go and pick up, but we're not really going to use it. So as you come through here, the first of many scares that made me put the game down when I was a kid. So as you come through this this hallway, some Cerberus is what they're actually known to. Some dogs will start bursting through the window, and they're not too difficult to deal with. What you want to do is take a shot and then wait a little while before you fire again. And yeah, another one going to jump through. And the reason for this is that if you fire a second shot while they're on the floor, it will miss. The only way it won't miss is if you get very, very close and then start shooting down, which is what I was trying to do there, just to make it a bit quicker. But considering they're quite weak after they take a round, they tend to get stun locked and knocked backwards, so just take your time with it. And there's a few, how would you call them, cabinets of some description. And the ones that you can move are a different colour than the rest. And this is kind of a recurring theme of these older games. All the other backgrounds were kind of pre-rendered. And then anything that was movable, you could usually tell a difference. So we're just going to make our way through the mansion here. And if we come in here, if you go to pick up the clip and don't go into the bathroom, a zombie will come out. And it's meant to give you a bit of a scare that you see it in the window like that. The best thing to do is just to quickly grab the clip and run out. No point wasting any ammo. And it's quite a small room anyway. So if you try fighting him in there, there's a chance that he's going to be able to close the gap and do some damage. And we would like to avoid getting munched on by zombies. It's not... we don't get hazard pay for that kind of thing as a Stars member. So here specifically is a reason that we want to go this way. And you may have noticed there's a bit of a weird glitch going on. It's something to do with the emulator when it takes that angle. I'm not sure why. But there's 3 zombies in here. And what you want to do is just take the first one out and then quickly run and grab the shotgun here. We're not going to waste any ammo on the other 2. I was thinking about it, but if we're quick enough, we can kind of get in and get out without having to worry about them. And if you can avoid using ammunition, that's always the ideal situation when it comes to Resident Evil games. And as you may have noticed by picking up that shotgun, a little lever mechanism is activated. And that's why it was glitching out a little bit earlier, because there's actually a ceiling here that moves. So normally taking the shotgun would result in us being locked in here, and you'd have to go back and put the shotgun back, otherwise risk being crushed. However, because we've come this way, and this only works with Jill Valentine, if we haven't activated any other cutscenes,
Hey, what's going on?
we get a hand.
Jill? Is that you, Jill? What happened?
Barry, help me, please. The door won't open. Quick!
Stay away from the door, Jill. I'm gonna kick this door down. Hurry! This way!
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life. But Barry, didn't you say you're going back to the dining room to do some research? Why on earth are you here?
I just had something I wanted to check. Now, let's get back to searching for the lost captain and Chris, shall we?
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah.
So that area is now completely sealed off, as you can imagine from the fact that the ceiling has come in. So the 2 zombies will be trapped in there as well anyway. We're never going to have to worry about them, so there was no point wasting ammo. Now, some people like to save the shotgun. I personally think it is the best zombie killer in the game. And it's also specifically because the handgun bullets I actually like to save, which might seem counterintuitive. You normally want to save the stronger weapon. But the reason for that is the dogs that you come across, the shotgun is not an effective weapon for them. And if you end up using all of the handgun rounds on the zombies, you won't have many to deal with them. And you need some handgun rounds to deal with them, otherwise you're going to struggle. So this is known as the Cradle to the Grave. The Cradle to the Grave puzzle, which I could never figure out as a kid, because I never knew if it meant... Well, I was a very stupid kid, let's just put it that way. And when it said Cradle to the Grave, I didn't know what the fuck a cradle was. And I only vaguely understood what a grave was. So there are a number of paintings in here. And what you have to do is hit the switches in the order that they show of a person's life. So it starts off as like a newborn, then, you know, infant, middle-aged, old man, etc., etc. And if you hit all the switches in the correct order and then go to the painting, which is the end of life here, it will fall down and you will be able to pick up the little crest that's held behind it, which is one of several we're going to need to be picking up before we move on to the second kind of stage of the game. And yeah, as a kid, I just couldn't figure out. I didn't know what a cradle was. I was like 4 or 5, if that. And I didn't know what the hell a middle-aged man was. Like, I didn't know at what point that was. It sounds stupid, but I was like, right, okay, is that before an adult? Is that after an adult? Like, I couldn't figure it out. And if you end up getting the switches incorrect, those crows that are kind of taking perch up above will swoop down to attack you. I don't know why. They seem to be quite on point with protecting that crest. They just apparently have some kind of sentience to it. And if that ends up happening, if you end up, you know, hitting the wrong painting or getting it in the wrong order, just run out of the room and then come back and the crows will have reset. There's no point trying to fight them. It's not going to do you any good. So we come across our first magical box, is the only way I can be describing them. So there are item storage boxes, but as is the case with all Resident Evil games, and for those of you who haven't played any Resident Evil game before, I have to wonder how the hell did you come across this video but have no knowledge of it? What the hell is YouTube's algorithm doing? Or, I don't know, maybe in years' time I end up putting this on a different website other than YouTube. Just the algorithm, there we go. We'll make it future-proof. Yeah, we're just going to put... Well, we have 2 clips to start with, which will probably infuriate any gun enthusiast, because it's not called a clip. A clip is what you put in your hair. It's called a magazine. And I know that was one thing that I always got told off when I played this game as a kid by my big brother. It's not a clip, it's a magazine. And he also told me off because I kept saying dollars when, as you can probably tell by my accent, I'm not American. But you know, you grow up watching nothing but American movies and American games. You start to think that you are, in a sense. I was a very stupid kid. Have I mentioned that? Now, when you come across the zombies, a good way to know whether or not they are dead, if they're on the ground, is once they're dead, they will have a pool of blood that seeps out for them. Now, with the fixed camera angles, it's not always apparent. So what you can do is run past them and aim. And if you're playing on the director's cut version, which has auto aim, it will aim to the body if they're still present. And oh my god, this music, or not even music, more sound cues, gives me a combination of nostalgia. As a kid, like, you hear that music and I was like, no, there's going to be a boss on this balcony. So I would never go through it. I was too scared to like go around to it. And then obviously, as we know now, it's just Forrest. It's just Forrest, who's been pecked to death by infected crows and turned to a zombie, who is guarding the bazooka for us. So we're just going to just grab that and make our way back out. In addition, he also has a key, so it's kind of important you come here, not just for the weapon, but we've already got pretty much the 3 main weapons we're going to be using as Jill. We've got the pistol for the low encounters, the dogs that we come across, shotgun for the, well, taking out zombies and I suppose some of the tougher enemies occasionally, and the bazooka for everything else, at least until we come across the Magnum. So we have most of our guns right off the bat. Now, we're going to make our way out through, and we're going to see our good friend Barry Burton.
Barry!
Jill, what's going on? Any clues?
No, but something's wrong with this house.
Whoa, this hall is dangerous. Maybe it's better to secure our escape route first. There must be a back door somewhere. Let's try to find it first, shall we?
Okay, let's separate again.
Just a moment. I found something.
What is it?
It's a weapon. It's really powerful, especially against living things. Better take it with you.
But how about you, Barry?
I have this.
Thank you. I'll take this then.
I have this. Oh, I love the B-grade acting in this. So why we wanted to go down through the blue door at the start of the game is if we go to second floor, go to face Forrest on the balcony and pick up the bazooka early on, Barry will not be in place to kick down the door and save us from the crushing ceiling. So there's a big benefit to going through that way. And when he mentions the fact that it's really powerful against living things, which does come across as like, what the fuck do you mean? What do you mean living things? I get the impression that, I don't know if maybe it was like a translation issue from the original Japanese, or maybe the voice actors were just drunk as fuck at the time. I'm not too certain, and that was damn close. You probably should have saved some shotgun rounds for him. Every now and then there's a few zombies that just move a lot quicker than other ones, and that's unfortunately one of the examples. But we were quite fortunate. We managed to get in the corner and take him out. Usually if you start blasting them with the pistol, they do get stun locked decently well. Not like the later games, sometimes they'll keep moving even if you're shooting them. And oh my god, I just blew his arm off. You go, Jill. You go, girl. Yeah, with it being effective against living things, it basically means anything that's not a zombie. So other BOWs that you'll come across. So, I mean, essentially pretty much anything that's not a zombie. They're acid rounds, which I know in the later Resident Evil games are kind of regarded as the weapon of choice against like hunters and lictors and stuff. So yeah, save those for those kind of enemies. They're not, don't waste them on zombies. I mean, you shouldn't be wasting grenade rounds on zombies regardless, but especially don't waste acid rounds. So the reason we're going to go in here, and there's not really much any real gameplay point to it, other than the fact that with this being the director's cut, you'll find that the outfit I'm wearing is a little bit different than if perhaps you were to, I don't know, look online and find some other videos of the first Resident Evil game. And it always bugged me, and the same goes for my Chris Redfield playthrough. He's wearing a slightly different outfit, and I was never a big fan of it. So we're literally going to go in here just to change into the outfit that you would play if you had just played the original game rather than this director's cut. And I don't know, it's got a classic look, hasn't it? The little hat that she wears. Jill in a little hat. Plus also the thumbnail I'm going to be using for this video has Jill wearing a hat. So obviously I want continuity there, you know. I don't want to be clickbaiting you or image baiting you. Thumbnail baiting you? Does that work? Thumbnail baiting, we're going with that one. And if you're wondering why, or if you're screaming, oh my god, there were 2 green herbs there, why didn't you pick them up? I don't pick up a huge amount of healing in this particular playthrough, and there's 2 very, very, very good reasons for it. Less so on Jill Valentine, but more on the Chris Redfield's playthrough. You don't really have much space. You only have 6 slots with Chris Redfield, so you need to be conservative with your space. And also, this was the first walkthrough I ever did, and I completed this game, I don't even want to think how many times I played through before I got a playthrough that was right. Especially because when I first started doing this was recorded way back when I had a laptop. And, before I had a proper gaming PC. And with the recording software I was using at the time, I don't know why it would happen, but a couple of times I finished it and I was like, oh, that's a really good run. We're gonna put that up. But because I guess I didn't have like enough CPU or enough RAM or memory, I don't know. I'm not the most technical minded when it comes to like computer stuff. But when I then get the finished video at the end of it, the longer the video went on, the more out of sync the time would go. Towards the end, it's like 10 seconds out of sync. So I did it so many fucking times trying to get a recording that didn't screw up that I'm pretty confident in not needing most of the healing items. And it has the benefit of making this walkthrough a bit quicker because I don't need to spend time dropping some items off.
Richard, what happened?
Oh, Jill, this house is dangerous. There are terrible demons. Ouch!
You're wounded. What kind of demon attacked you?
It was a huge snake, and also poisonous. Ugh.
Poisonous? Oh no. Richard, hold on.
There is serum. Oh no, I should have brought some with me.
No problem. I'll go and get it.
Thanks.
Doesn't sound as if he's on the verge of dying, does he? Can you go grab that cup of tea off the counter for me? It's all the way over there. Thanks, Jill. Like, not like I'm fucking dying because I've been mauled by a 30-foot snake. And just a pet peeve I have, it's not poison, it's venom. Poison is something that you inhale or ingest. Venom is something that is put into you via like a bite or a sting. I know with all of the other kind of problems there's been with the voice acting, that is the least important thing, because that's something that, you know, even native English speakers can easily get wrong. It's quite a common misconception, so it's not something I should get worked up about, but it's just it irks me. I find it irksome. Little things like that, like, just grind my gears. What's the opposite of butters my toast? Makes my toast fall down butter side. Maybe. Possibly. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. So we're going to push the statue around here. And it can be quite useful if you have a knife. The zombie will usually get caught on the statue and you can kind of like knife it through the statue if you want to save some ammo. But we're not that strapped for ammunition, so we can make do with just pushing it off and knocking it over. And as I probably should have mentioned, we've picked up a, well, it's not even called a bronze crest. It looks like a bronze crest. It's just a crest from the room previous to where we came across Richard. And that puzzle, as you may have seen, I was moving statues over some vents in the floor. I mean, it's probably quite obvious when you go into the room that there's some kind of trap there. I mean, there's objects you can interact with. There are things on the floor. So if you don't push the statues over the vents, when you hit the switch... Oh, that was close. When you hit the switch, gas will leak out and you'll die. And this is what I was talking about earlier. If you can get in close and start shooting them when they're on the ground, you can just keep plugging them away rather than wait for them to get up. And we're just going to try and see if we can coax out the final dog through here. So we just go forward a little bit. And he makes his entrance. They all like jumping through windows. They're all just waiting there, just prepared for, I was about to say some fresh meat to walk past, but considering Jill Valentine's a young lady, that's a little bit inappropriate. Just because we want to try and get rid of the handgun. As I've mentioned before, I played through this so many goddamn times that I pretty much know section for section exactly how many slots we have and what we can and can't take with us. I unfortunately know this one better than any other Resident Evil, even though it's not even my favourite one. So we're just going to get rid of the pistol just to get the extra space as we move forward, because we're going to have just enough spaces to pick up exactly everything that we need. It's a lot more of an issue when you play through as Chris Redfield, as I've mentioned before, with only having 6 inventory slots. You're very strapped a lot of the time. And so I did play through it quite a lot. In fact, as I make my walkthroughs, what I tend to do is go through them a few times and pretty much just have like notes either written down, or first of all, they're written down on a piece of paper. And then when I upgraded my setup a little bit and had a second monitor, I'd usually have a Word document on the right-hand side telling me, right, do this, do that, just so I don't mess up as I'm going through it, because then you got to restart the whole fucking thing or restart the whole mission or whatever it is I'm happen to be working on. And you don't want that happening. You don't want to waste any more time, you know. So there's some shotgun shells in here. And a Magnum, which we're not going to be using. In fact, if you were playing it sensibly and not trying to quickly go through it like I am, you'd probably just run back to the storage room and just put it away right now, because you don't need it for the time being. You want to save the ammo for enemies that actually require it. You could waste Magnum ammo on zombies if you wanted to, but you would end up massively regretting it. So there's two zombies through here, and one always walks a lot faster than the other. It is possible to take both their heads off with a single shot if you're fortunate enough for them to go both kind of like line up in a certain way, but it tends not to happen. Now, moving into this room, there is a diary in here. And I'm not going to be pausing the video as I read through the diary, just because there's quite a lot of sections which are a little bit lacking in action, so it's going to help me pad it out, basically. But we're going to come to the diary here, and oh, what's this? Jill's looking. It's a zombie. Fuck you. And even though there's epic music, it's just a normal zombie. Just shoot it once and he's gone. So I'm just going to quickly breeze through this so you're not just stuck looking at the notes, but I will read it out as we go forward. May 9th, 1998. At night we played poker with Scott the guard, Alias, and Steve the researcher. Steve was very lucky, but I think he was cheating. What a scumbag. May 10th, 1998. Today, a high-ranking researcher asked me to take care of a new monster. It looks like a gorilla without any skin. They told me to feed them live food. When I threw in a pig, they were playing with it, tearing off the pig's legs and pulling out the guts before they actually ate it. May 11th, 1998. Around 5 o'clock this morning, Scott came in and woke me up suddenly. He was wearing a protective suit that looks like a spacesuit. He told me to put one on as well. I heard there was an accident in the basement lab. It's no wonder. Those researchers never rest, even at night. May 12th, 1998. I've been wearing this annoying spacesuit since yesterday. My skin grows musty and feels very itchy. By way of revenge, I didn't feed those dogs today. Now I feel better. May 13th, 1998. I went to the medical room because my back is all swollen and feels itchy. They put a big bandage on my back and the doctor told me I did not need to wear the spacesuit anymore. I guess I can sleep well tonight. May 14th, 1998. When I woke up this morning, I found another blister on my foot. It was annoying and ended up dragging my foot as I went to the dog's pen. They have been quiet since morning, which is very unusual. I find that some of them had escaped. I'll be in real trouble if the higher-ups find out. May 15th, 1998. Even though I didn't feel well, I decided to go see Nancy. It's my first day off in a long time, but I was stopped by the guard on the way out. They say the company has ordered that no one leaves the grounds. I can't even make a phone call. What kind of joke is this? May 16th, 1998. I heard a researcher who tried to escape from this mansion was shot last night. My entire body feels burning and itchy at night. When I was scratching the swelling on my arms, a lump of rotten flesh dropped off. What the hell is happening to me? May 19th, 1998. Fever gone but itchy. Hungry and eat doggy food. Itchy, itchy Scott came. Ugly face so killed him. Tasty. Itchy. Tasty. And that is the diary that spawned 1,000 memes. Itchy. Tasty. Anyways, you might have noticed that we've done a sweep around the greater part of the front side of the mansion. And coming across Kenneth's body there, which is where we came across the very first zombie. There's 2 clips on him. We're going to pick those up. We wouldn't have the opportunity earlier because we got Barry Burton to take it out. And by putting the golden crest in here, we get the blue jewel, which we're just going to go back and use. So normally if you go in and you take the gold crest, as you probably imagine, you're kind of just stuck in there until you put the gold crest back in, and that's your way of getting out. So by getting the bronze crest, I think it's just called the crest actually, from the second floor where the gas room is, where we had to move the statues to make sure we didn't get gassed out. We put that in, get the gold crest out, and from that we have a blue jewel, which we're going to put in the tiger statue here. And this is going to give us a key, which allows us to move a little bit forward through into some of the extra areas of this mansion. So there's a lot of kind of, I wouldn't say backtracking, there's a lot of different ways you can do the first section of the game. I do find it goes a lot more linear after the initial mansion scene, but there's a lot of freedom, at least at this point. And I'm doing my best when I went through this walkthrough, and I did spend a lot of time trying to kind of roadmap what I thought was the way to get a lot of things done in like one sweep, because I find that the entire first section of the mansion, where you put all the crests into the door and you end up going to where the security guard like room is, you can do in just under an hour. I'm fairly certain speedrunners have probably found a quicker way of doing even that, but this is what I found. I'm by no means a speedrunner. I like to show off as much of the game as I possibly can. And this is one of the crests we're going to need to get to the second area. So we've got 2 of them now. As you'll recall, we got the first one from the Cradle to the Grave puzzle. And now we've gone through and cleared out most of this area, we're going to get back to Richard, who is still dying of poison, quote unquote, from a demon, quote unquote. And so we should probably check up on him, see how he's doing. Just make sure he hasn't keeled over on us already. I should probably mention, actually, not that it's a problem with the Jill Valentine playthrough, because Jill Valentine is a woman of many talents. She is the master of unlocking for... That's just an awkward title, isn't it? But Jill also has the ability to play the piano. Clearly, she spent a lot of time in her youth learning instruments. Chris's playthrough, he doesn't have that ability, and he has to actually get his partner, a woman by the name of Rebecca Chambers, to play the piano for him. But anyway, back to Richard.
Here's the serum. Richard, hold on. I'll give you a shot now.
Jill, here's my radio. You should keep it. I'm...
No! Richard!
Jill, be careful.
So yeah, Richard dies no matter what we do. There is a 7-minute timer when you first speak to Richard, which you don't get to see, and it's not counted down when you're opening and closing doors. It doesn't count towards it. It's only time you can actually spend moving around. If you get to him in under 7 minutes, he will die while you're there, and he'll end up giving you a radio. If you take longer than 7 minutes, he's already dead by the time you get back. And the only difference, and it's really not a big one, it doesn't like change the endings or the story in any major way, is that the radio that he gives you, if you had got there in time, you just end up picking up a little bit later. It doesn't change really anything of note. But make sure you check his body twice. The first time it will just say, oh, it's Richard, he's dead. And the second time you'll actually be able to pick up some ammunition from him. So I'm just going to go through here and look up the botany book. Botany book. About medicinal herbs. As you may know, there are many plants that have medical effects. Since ancient times, humans have been healing wounds and diseases using various plants. In this book, we're going to sample 3 herbs that grow around the Raccoon Mountains and give their outlines as example of those plants with medical properties. Each herb has different colours and different effects as medical plants. The green one recovers physical strength. The blue one neutralises natural toxins, while the red herb does not have any effect by itself. The red herb is only effective when it is mixed with other herbs. For example, if you mix this herb with the herb that recovers physical strength, the recovery effect will be tripled. By adjusting the amount and experimenting with these 3 herbs, you can create various kinds of medicines, but I'll leave the details in your hands because that's the best way to acquire true knowledge. So I feel as if there's a few translational issues with that particular diary. Like the way it's saying, oh, just go out and experiment with herbs. That's the best way to learn knowledge. It's like, okay, why the fuck did I buy a botany book if you're just going to tell me, oh, just go and do your own thing? I brought a botany book because I want to learn about botany. Please teach me botany, senpai. And some of the information it gives in there isn't all that great either. Like it mentions about green herbs restoring physical strength, which I guess is their way of trying to make it sound a little bit more believable than saying green herbs will heal you and heal your health points. But yeah, it didn't explain it too well. So green herbs will heal 1/3 of your health, red herbs are useless on their own. If you combine a green herb with a red herb, it completely heals you. Combining a red herb with a blue herb will do nothing. It doesn't increase its ability to deal with toxins in any way, shape or form. A blue herb will cure poison. That's it. And so you can combine all three if you want to have like the ubermensch of herbs. And speaking of herbs, there's a metric fuck ton of them out here that we can use to experiment with if we so desire. Although, as I've said before, we're going to be abandoning most of them because we need the inventory space. So we've just come out here to pick up the chemical, and as we go to run backward, the dog that was barking from the fence outwards will finally jump over. And we're just going to run past him, just going to run back into the mansion, and we're just going to, you know, let him do his thing. There's no reason to come back outside to that section ever again. And well, unless you wanted to pick up the herbs, that is. But for this particular playthrough, there's no reason for us to go back outside, so we're just gonna leave him there. There's no point trying to kill him off, just waste some extra bullets. And we're trying to be a bit frugal with our ammunition when we can. So with the chemical in hand, we are going to go upstairs and check on the other room that we didn't go through last time we were up here. So, as well, if the camera angle changes, you can follow that corridor all the way down, and there is a zombie down there. But there's no point to us going down there. We're not going to need to go down there until way, way, way later in the game. So we can safely ignore that section for now. And I do like when a game says, oh, you don't need this key anymore, you can get rid of it. I don't know why our character is omnipotent, but it does save the inventory space. So because we left that zombie there, he's going to come in, and thankfully he's going to go down in 2 shots. So we don't have to waste too much ammunition on that. I find that the headshot mechanic, they did keep it in later games, and in Resident Evil 3, it's still in there, but you need to get an upgraded handgun for it to work. I guess they didn't like how much of an RNG emphasis it made. And yeah, there's a clip in the corner which you would have no way of knowing that's there unless, well, as a kid, when you're trying to figure out what the fuck you're meant to be doing, you're kind of just running around all the rooms, just spamming the X button, trying to find anything that there is to interact on. So there's some bullets down there. There's also a red herb in there, but we don't need that for the time being. And now as we come across to what I assume is some kind of study room, there is a fish tank here, which is devoid of fish. It's just a tank, just a water tank. And by flicking the switch, we're going to drain it, which will reduce its weight enough for us to be able to push it. And the main thing we want to push in here is actually I'm not sure if it's like a bookcase or a wardrobe here. So you want to get into the corner to push the tank out of the way so you have space to push that over. And behind these 2 little doors here will be 1/2 of the moon crest. So we now have 2.5 out of the 4 crests we need to get to the, well, I guess kind of like the second era of the game. I like to think of the initial exploration around the front side of the mansion is like the first third, and then the second third is you going to the guardhouse, coming back to the mansion, and then the third half is the third is when you go down into the tunnels and do the final section. So we're finally going to be moving over to the door which was where Richard was struggling with before. So as you can probably imagine, seeing as he's saying he's been attacked by a terrible demon, the giant snake he referred to, it is through here that we will be finding said giant snake. So this is the first interaction with the Yawn, which is like a giant python. And in actual fact, I was quite fortunate here. Really, I shouldn't have come to this section without a shotgun, because those zombies are so close together that they can close the gap on you and take a couple of chunks out of you. And as you can see, I got very, very lucky here. I shouldn't really have taken that sort of risk. I mean, admittedly, a couple of chunks doesn't make a huge difference. You have enough health, but I think most people prefer not to be eaten. It's generally quite low on their list of priorities, all things considered. Now, for some baffling reason, there are items in this room that you won't be able to pick up unless you've lit the candles in this room, even though we're pushing the wardrobe over here and going into an entirely fucking separate room to search for items. Why you wouldn't just have the fucking lighter with you and that being used as the source of light? Video game logic. For the most part, Resident Evil is relatively okay with the logic. It's not like some adventure game logic where it's not like Gabriel Knight where you put a mustache on you to pass off as another character who doesn't even have a mustache. It's not quite that bad, but it's a little bit bizarre there. And yeah, the red key we got from the tiger will allow us to pass through here. So it is locked, so you have to do a little bit of exploration, so you get a bit of a warning that you're going to be coming across the Yawn, which is what killed Richard here. And this is the Yawn, who... a big old fuck off snake. So what we're going to do is not even bother trying to fight it. There is no point fighting it at this point. What we're going to do is try and kind of exploit the AI a little bit. So we use that crate there to kind of get it to get stuck on the other side. With that, we can run past and grab up the second half of the moon key. Now, after you've got that moon key, you want to kind of like stay behind this section here and try and like see if you can get it to move around, because it can kind of curl up on itself. And then as it starts to move around, that's when you move out, because it's almost like it has a bit of a turning circle. So think of it in a manner like a car or something. So if you can get really close to it, it can't turn quick enough. And it doesn't make much sense that a snake can't do that, but it's just the way the game was designed. And with that, we can successfully get the crest piece without getting attacked. Now, and this is true of both Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine's playthrough, if you can't kill the Yawn in that encounter, all you can do is damage it enough that it runs away. And in fact, you end up coming across the Yawn later on in the game, and its body looks a bit slightly damaged, so I expect that the game expected you to fight it the first time, rather than just running through like we did. But the second time you fight it, that's when you can actually take it out for good. Basically, it's just a waste of ammo to fight it, and the first time. It doesn't make it any weaker the second time. It doesn't change anything other than the fact that you now have less ammunition. So if you can go through without firing, Bob's your uncle. That's what you want to be going for. Now, usually, and if anyone has played this game before, you might recall, hang on a minute, there's a bit of the game that's missing. And it's one thing I quite like about it is that it does have that taken into account. There are like certain paths you can take. So if you get hit even once by the Yawn during that fight, you will be poisoned in the same way that Richard was, and we had to go get serum for him. And in the case of Jill Valentine, what that means is if we come out, we'll basically faint, and Barry Burton will come across us, take us to the room of the serum, give us the shot, and basically make sure we don't die. So in some ways, it gives you a little bit more cutscenes, and it does allow you to circumvent a big chunk of the mansion to get there quickly. But considering you're wasting time on the cutscene, it probably doesn't make it any quicker at all anyway. Whereas if you don't get hit by the Yawn at all, then you can just completely bypass that section of the game. So if you're a speedrunner, you don't want to get hit, because it means you don't have to do a section, as you would imagine. So coming in here, we're going to be using the chemical that we picked up when we went slightly outside the mansion where the dogs are. And there's a half-living plant here, which would normally attack us and prevent us from moving forward. With the chemical, it's going to kill it all off and allow us to pick up the fourth and final crest that we need to get out of the mansion. And there's actually quite a lot of herbs here as well. So again, if you're running a little bit low on health, it's a nice area to stock up. And there we are, the sun crest. So the final piece that we need. So with that, as you'll recall, near to where we had the Cradle to the Grave puzzle is a door which will require 4 crests to move onwards. So we're just going to get all of the pieces together and move on to that section. And there's also the entire courtyard area is the whole reason why I tend to focus on using the shotgun for a lot of the zombies in the first part of the mansion. So as you will see, we have a lot of handgun ammo at the moment. We've got over 100 rounds. But there are a lot of dogs in the courtyard section. If you try to use like your shotgun or something, I'm not quite sure why it works the way it does. I think maybe a big reason why the shotgun's so effective against zombies is obviously you wait for them to get close, aim up at their heads, and you can take them out in one go. If you try using the shotgun with dogs, even if you wait for them to get close and fire, what I find tends to happen is that you still end up using 3 to 4 shells to kill one dog, whereas you kill them with 4 to 5 handgun rounds. So you don't need to be particularly adept to realise that it's far better to use the handgun to take the dogs out. So it's why I've specifically saved all of the bullets for this section, because there's off the top of my head there's at least 9 dogs, maybe more. So you know, a few rounds won't go amiss at helping us through here. And we're going to go to the second floor because I think this is slightly faster than going the long way on the ground floor through to it. I'm not sure, I haven't tested it, but just from how it feels, I feel like this is slightly faster. Not by much, I mean it's pretty 50-50, but considering this is also the quicker way to where the safe room is, it's better to go this way, isn't it? And one thing I quite admire about just having picked up the crest there is some of the foreshadowing this game does. So in picking up the crest, we come across a sort of sentient enemy-like plant, or well, it was more vines than anything. And if we go to try and pick up the crest piece, then we get attacked by the vines. So it starts off as being a bit of a puzzle. Okay, you have this plant here. Shooting it won't do anything, so how do we get past it? Well, we're going to use some chemicals to basically kill the plant, just like concentrated weed killer. So what starts off initially as just an obstacle that you need to overcome also gives you, well, a bit of an insight into the lore and the background of the game. So we know for a fact that the experiments they've been working on, it's not just the fact that they've created zombies and they've created zombie dogs. It's also telling us that they have done experiments on plants. So it's not just animals and humans that we're going to be fighting, but potentially biologically engineered plants that are also going to be one of the enemies. And I quite like that. It goes from you having essentially just an obstacle, it's just a puzzle, isn't it? That you have this plant that's in the way, you can't shoot it, you can't whack it. I mean, you have a knife, I don't know why I can't just cut it to pieces, but I digress. The way to take that out is to use, well, chemicals, essentially just concentrated weed killer to get past it and get the crest piece. And then obviously you can't progress onto the second third of the game, or I'd just say second portion rather than third, rather than to confuse it, without having to get on that piece. And in so doing, by grabbing that piece, it's telling the player, okay, there are plant enemies in this game. You may have to come across plant enemies later on. And of course, the next boss that we're going to come across is a plant-based boss. It's a giant plant that attacks you. And it's one of those things I never really noticed when I was younger. In fact, I didn't even notice going through this walkthrough. You kind of just go, okay, I need to do A to get to B to get to C. You don't really think too much about it, but it does it quite well. And I find you don't notice games that do things well until you've seen games that do them badly. If everything's working as intended, you tend not to notice it.
This is Brad. Stars Alpha Team. Please respond. What the hell? Is nobody out there?
Brad, this is Jill.
This is Brad. Stars Alpha Team. Bravo Team. It doesn't matter. Anybody answer me. This is
Brad? Brad!
So yes, that cutscene of sorts where we speak with Brad Vickers, who is our chopper pilot for Stars team, wouldn't occur if we hadn't managed to get the serum back to Richard in time. Again, doesn't change anything really, it's just a cutscene at that point, and that's what the radio icon does in your inventory screen. So you don't have to even listen to the radio, you can just carry on, it doesn't change a goddamn thing. So as we made our way through to the outside of the mansion, we pushed these stairs to pick up this crank. And it's one of the few times I find where an item is very, very close to where you intend to use it, which it's nice that occasionally you have that. You don't want to have to be backtracking through the whole bloody mansion trying to find an item. And as a kid, trust me, I spent a lot of time aimlessly wandering around the mansion trying to figure out where the fuck I was going. So with this section cleared out of water, as you run through, you'll notice that there's like these snake-like wormy things. I think they're more snakes that will drop down. And literally every time you walk past here, or run past here as the case is, they will drop down. So there is absolutely no point wasting your ammunition trying to take them out. Next time you come across here, they'll drop down exactly the same. And when you come back here, they'll be back up in the trees ready to drop down. They don't stay on the path. So there is no point wasting your ammo. Just run past them every time. And a few more dogs. Unfortunately, this bit I find it a little bit awkward. You can get attacked just because of the camera angles. I think I mentioned before that there was like 9 dogs in this section. There's more. It's probably about 12 to 13. Hence why I was trying to save so much of my damn ammunition. And yeah, just keeping on the theme with foreshadowing, it's something that I think the Keeper's Diary does quite well. There's a lot of problems with the Keeper's Diary. The fact that he refers to a biohazard suit as a spacesuit. Like, I get he's a keeper, he's not a scientist, but if you're going to employ someone, like, I don't expect him to be that fucking stupid. Like, surely he would... looks like a spacesuit. Like, the Keeper writes like he's got like an IQ of 14, you know? It seems very, very odd. And the fact that... I get the purpose of the diary is that, you know, we're meant to be seeing the process, and it's meant to send, you know, some chills up the spine. Oh my god, this zombie that was in the closet, this was this person. And I'm not sure if that's, like, trying to get you to empathise with him, but the Keeper seems like a little bit of a sociopath from reading the diary. The fact that he's having a bad day and he goes, you know what, I'm just not going to feed the dogs today. That made me feel better. Like, even zombie dogs, you don't mistreat dogs. Like, there is no way to quicker make you hated than to mistreat animals, especially dogs. But that aside, and some of the verbiage in it aside, the whole main point of the Keeper's Diary wasn't to spook you. It's like, oh, this was the diary of the person in the closet. I find that the key takeaway of that is it mentioning that they had a monster, or a creature, or however you would describe it, and he refers to it as like a gorilla without any skin and stuff. And that again foreshadows one of the monsters you're going to come across later. So in that regard, it's quite good. It foreshadows an enemy that's to come up later. So, okay, there's going to be more than just zombies in this game. Maybe I should save some of my ammunition. It tells you that quite early on. Probably could have worded it a little bit better, admittedly. But at least it got the point across. And some of the wording, I reckon you could probably just get away with the localization. I'm certain the way it was worded in the original Japanese version was probably less retarded than in the British version, or the American version, I should say, actually. Even though we invented the damn language, just say English speaking, there we go. We'll just cover all our bases with that one. So as we go through here, you might notice there's some cracks here and there. And what we're going to try and do is just push these statues over them. And what that's going to do is occasionally there'll be some vines that kind of like spring up and attack you. And it's just going to stop them from hitting you. They don't really do much damage. Like, it's barely even something you notice. But if we can avoid it, why not? Although if you're speedrunning the game, I mean, I haven't actually watched many speedruns, but I imagine you just blast through it, to be honest. But anyway, we're just going to pick up a red book, and we're just going to just run around the table and just avoid this giant tarantula, and just don't even deal with that. There is a pool table to the south side of that room which we didn't see. And the reason why we're not even going to bother looking at it is because normally there's a pool table, and the pool cues would be pointed at a certain angle, which is meant to give you a clue for a puzzle later on. However, because we're playing as Jill Valentine, there are entire fucking swaths of this game that we can just ignore, that we don't need to worry about unless we play through as Chris Redfield. I mean, obviously the most obvious one being the fact that with her being the master of unlocking, every time we come across like the drawers, we can just unlock them. Whereas with Chris Redfield, he would have to use a small key, which seems to be used up when you use a small key. I don't know how you break a key on use, but it is whatever. So that puzzle we're going to completely ignore. What that would normally do is give us a clue to the code to mix chemicals with which to kill a plant, or kill plant 42 I should say. But again, because we're playing as Jill Valentine, don't need to worry about it. Don't even need to worry about any of that nonsense. So we can just blast through it happily. Pick up the dormitory key where the bees will come out from us, and again, much like the snakes, just run away. There's no point fighting them. And you only get to use it once just for this room, which, speaking of lockpicks, some more goodies, some shotgun shells. There is a map here on the wall here, and a note about Plant 42. Plant 42 report. 4 days have passed since the accident, and the plant at point 42 is growing amazingly fast. It has been affected by the T-virus differently than other plants have been, and shows unique shape in addition to its size. Looking at the way it behaves, it is now difficult to determine what kind of plant it was originally. There are two ways in which Plant 42 gathers nutrition. The first one is through its root that reaches into the basement. Immediately after the accident, a scientist went mad and broke the water tank in the basement. Now the basement is filled with water. It is easily imaginable that some chemical elements were blended in the water and promotes the incredibly fast growth of Plant 42. Another part of Plant 42 from the basement grows through the duct and hangs down like so many bulbs from the ceiling of the first floor. Many vines come out of those bulbs, and they are the second resource for its nutrition. Once sensing movement, Plant 42 shoots its vines around the prey and holds it. Then it starts sucking up blood, using the suckers located at the back of its vine. It also has some intelligence. It blocks the door by twinning its vines around it, especially when it captures prey or is sleeping. Several staff members have already fallen victim to this. May 21st, 1998, Henry Sarton. Hello, and welcome to this commentary for Resident Evil Director's Cut, playing as Jill Valentine. I'll see you after the intro. V-Jolt report. As I started in the last report, here are some common features found in the cells of the plant infected by the Tyrant virus. We also found another interesting fact through some experiments. We found an element that destroys these plant cells rapidly in UMB number 16, one of the series of UMB chemicals that we used for that experiment. We named this UMB number 16 as V-Jolt. In our calculation, it will take less than 5 seconds to destroy Plant 42 if we put the V-Jolt directly on the root. You need to mix some of the UMB series chemicals in a specific order to create a V-Jolt, but the UMB series chemicals may generate a poisonous gas which is harmful to the human body. Extreme caution should be taken when handling these chemicals. Following are the types of UMB series chemicals and brief characteristics. Number 2, red. NP003, purple. Number 4, green. Yellow 6, yellow. Number 7, white. UMB number 13, blue with a stimulating spell. V-Jolt UMB number 16, brown. So all of that was information to create the V-Jolt, which we're not bothering with this playthrough. Instead, we're going to just do the good old-fashioned way and just do the good old American way and just fucking shoot it to death. So the pistol is actually more than enough to deal with this. You don't need to worry about strong weapons. You just want to keep to the outside of the fight, and whenever you start to see the roof crumbling, move round. So move, take a few shots, soon as you see it crumbling, move again, take a few shots. And I honestly think this is far easier. It's definitely far quicker than messing around with the V-Jolt. So after you've done enough damage to it, it will shrink up, and Jill, in her infinite wisdom, will get a bit close to it. But fortunately, we have a certain Mr. Barry Burton nearby.
What the hell is this?
Barry!
Jill!
You saved me!
Yeah,
That was close. Thanks, Barry.
don't mention it. What a monster. I can't believe... What the hell is this place anyway?
Barry, where the fuck did you get a flamethrower from? And why are you not sharing with your good friend Jill here? What the fuck, Barry?
Okay. I'm gonna stay in the soldiers area and take a look around. Though I'm sure there are still things in that other mansion as well. Anyway, let's start searching separately.
Okay.
I always found it quite amusing how in the older Resident Evil games, they come up with any kind of contrived reason as to why your characters have to separate. So obviously, you know, you have to have the game, so you can't have Barry Burton with you the whole time, killing everything that you come across. It wouldn't be much of a game at that point. Whereas in the more recent Resident Evil games, like Resident Evil 5 for instance, which is an entirely co-op game, they have to come up with any kind of contrived reason why these two characters have to stay joined at the hip at all points. I just find it quite amusing how there's a bit of a switcheroo as the games progressed. But yes, that was Plant 42, and there are two ways of dealing with it. So when I was reading through the reports, there was one talking about creating this V-Jolt. And if you create the V-Jolt, which is where we got the red book from, the pool table in there, there are two pool cues which are situated in such a way to stimulate like hands on a clock, and that's supposed to give you the code to go into the room to create the V-Jolt, which is actually easier to create with Jill Valentine just because she has more inventory spaces to faff around with. The reason why I don't like making the V-Jolt with Jill Valentine is when you create it, you have to then go down here to put the V-Jolt into the roots of the plant to then go back up to kill it properly. So I find it takes longer to take it out using the V-Jolt. And the only difference is, as we've just seen in this version, if you don't bother with the V-Jolt, you go in and then you have to fight the plant. And as we saw, it's not exactly a particularly challenging boss fight. You can take it out quite easily with the handgun as long as you have enough rounds, and it's just a case of sticking to the edges of the boss room, moving whenever some of the ceiling's going to collapse on you, and just plugging a few rounds into it. The only difference is if you were to use the V-Jolt, instead when you go into that room, it's already shriveled up because you've injected the chemicals into it. Except when you go in, it then, you know, comes out and grabs Jill, and again you have to get saved by Barry. So Barry will still come in and he will flamethrow it both times. The only difference is you either have to fight it, as we just did then, or you use the V-Jolt and you don't have to worry about the fight. But the fight's not really enough of a challenge that you don't want to worry about it. And as you can see, coming down here, because it would be in that side room there that you have to administer the V-Jolt, is so time consuming and so much of a faff. I mean, and you have to worry about making the V-Jolt, that I honestly just find it so much easier just to fucking shoot the plant. It's so much easier to do that. And oh no, there's a zombie shark or just a normal shark. I'm not sure if it's a zombie shark or... I'm pretty sure it's technically like been injected with the T virus to make it more aggressive. I mean, they inject everything with the T virus. This T virus works in everything. Animals, plants, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, it does seem as if everything has gone wrong in a very short space of time. Because they've managed to realise, okay, there's a plant that's killing researchers. So it's kind of an issue we need to deal with. We've managed to create a guide on how to use this V-Jolt to take it out. We know that chances are it's going to kill it very quickly, but we haven't yet managed to actually make use of it. And I think the explanation for that is if you read the date on the Plant 42 report, it happens 2 days after the final report in the Keeper's Diary. So I'm guessing the explanation is just everything happened to go wrong at the exact same time, that they just didn't have, you know, an opportunity to call in biohazard teams just to deal with the plant. So they managed to formulate the theory, but they haven't yet managed to like introduce it into the roots. And I guess if there's a fucking killer shark swimming around down here, I guess that's a half decent reason for it. So yeah, when the killer shark comes out, literally there's a very odd cutscene that you'll see it from the shark's point of view, and it's not the last time they'll be doing something like that. But just move a little bit more ahead, open up the room and drain it, and then the shark is completely helpless, just be flopping around. So literally it's only dangerous for about 3 seconds. And also another reason why I don't like using the V-Jolt is that you run the risk of triggering it if you come down here soon. I mean, it shouldn't make much of a difference as long as you're quite concise with your movements, but again, I just find the V-Jolt for Jill Valentine's playthrough just not worth it in the grand scheme of things. But we've got the key, and with this mansion key we're going to be returning back to the original mansion. We're pretty much finished here at the guard station, and we're about around the halfway point of the game, and you'll notice the difficulty does start to ramp up pretty significantly at this point. I'm just going to make our way through and speak to someone that we've not seen for a little while.
Wesker!
Jill, so you're safe.
That's what I was going to say. Where on earth have you been? You disappeared from the hall all of a sudden.
I'm sorry, but I have my reasons. Perhaps you guys have met them? It was all I could do to protect myself against those strange creatures.
Is that right? Anyway, it's good to see you're safe.
Jill, our first priority is to get out of here.
Yes, you're right.
Now, there are a lot of rooms in that mansion that we can't get into because they're locked up. I have been looking around for clues.
Okay, I'll go to the other house and see if I can find any clues.
Will you do that? I'm counting on you.
Now, I have a little bit of a hypothesis. There's very odd music that plays when you meet Wesker here. They're kind of almost like an ominous tune, is the best way I can think of describing it. And I get the impression that they realised the voice acting is so fucking weird, so bad, and the dialogue so nonsensical. Like, a lot of the times it seems as if the people given the dialogue were handed a script and they didn't know how it fit into the game. They didn't really even know what scenes or what lines worked, you know, in what order. A lot of times it sounds as if they're speaking phonetically. That, even when, as a kid, when I came across Wesker, I didn't think he was acting suspicious because fucking Barry Burton acts suspicious. Just Jill Valentine acts suspicious. Everyone talks so wrong that you can't tell when you're meant to be all, oh, this person's not acting as they should be. Maybe there's something a little bit off about them. So I get the impression that the music that plays when you come across Wesker there was because they were like, okay, even though what he's saying doesn't make sense, nothing that anyone says in this game makes any fucking sense. So we need to find some way of letting the player know that this character's acting a bit off. Oh, I know, let's use a musical cue.
This is Brad. I know you can't answer me, but somehow give me a...
This is Jill. Brad? Oh, it's broken.
Now, fortunately, well, I say fortunately, we made the effort when we were first moving through here to save all of our handgun ammunition, to take out all of the dogs on the way here, so we can just equip our better weapons and not have to worry about them. Now, hopefully, if you've gotten to this part of the game, you will have saved most of your stronger ammunition, so your Magnum rounds and your Bazooka rounds, because the enemies we're going to face, you don't want to be trying to kill them with a handgun. It's a surefire way to get yourself killed. I always wondered why it's called a Bazooka. I mean, I think it kind of goes hand in hand with, the fact that they called magazines clips in this game. A lot of the information they had just wasn't correct, because as far as I'm aware, and I'm fully aware that I could be wrong on this, but I don't think so, Bazooka is like a colloquial term for a rocket launcher. I don't think there's any actual rocket launcher called a bazooka. In fact, I'm pretty sure the bazooka is named after the M9A1 rocket launcher. And I think it has something to do with it being named after like a horn by some comedian or something. I'm not too certain. And oh, I was lying, there are dogs. We're just going to run past those. They're not too much of an issue. Just be a little bit quick with it. And make our way back to the main mansion. As you'll recall, there was one room that I mentioned that we were not going to bother going to earlier when we picked up the Zippo lighter, because we needed the helmet key, which we've just gotten from beating Plant 42. Now, as we go through here, we're going to be greeted with a bit of a cutscene. So quite a cool little scene there. It reminds me very much of like Evil Dead, whenever it has it like the camera moving very quickly along the ground. It's meant to be like from the Deadites' point of view. But these are the hunters, and even though they are a wee bit shorter than the zombies we've had to face, they are far, far deadlier. They're very, very quick. They have a jump attack, which means sometimes they can just completely avoid your rounds. So they are a big old threat. You don't really want to be facing them with anything other than a bazooka or a Magnum. I mean, you can face them with a shotgun, and in actual fact, on Chris Redfield's playthrough, you kind of have to a few times, but it is not an ideal situation. Now, there's a room here that we didn't open earlier, which we can now open up with the helmet key. And from here, we're going to grab the MO disc. Now, the MO disc doesn't help us in the main game in any way, shape, or form. However, if you're going for the best ending, or the canonical ending, you need to pick up 3 MO discs. The other 2 you won't face until much, much later in the game. And if you don't pick up this one here, what's going to end up happening is you have to go through the entire subterranean section, backtrack through here to grab it. So try not to forget that. And with us having gone to the guard station, and that's nice. Barry's left us a few bits and bobs in the safe room here. So with us having gone to the guard station coming back, you'll notice that most of the area has been repopulated. It was originally zombies, and now there's hunters everywhere. So what you want to try and do is limit your movement through the mansion as much as possible. Only go to an area that you absolutely need to go to, otherwise you're gonna be having a bad time. So what we're going to try and do is, again, to try and limit the space we're using up, we're only going to be taking the acid rounds and the shotgun rounds to, well, not have to use up quite so much space. Barry was kind enough to give us a first aid spray, which we're not going to take with us because we've practiced enough that we don't need to. And unfortunately, unlike with Resident Evil 3, the bazooka in this game can only hold 6 rounds at a time. The grenade launcher in Resident Evil 3 can hold potentially an infinite number, which allows you to save some spaces, but we don't have any such luck this time round. And we want the shotgun for this bit up here, so you can kind of cheese the hunters a little bit. Because of the way stairs work in the first one, these hunters can't actually walk down the stairs. So if you get from this angle, you can just slowly whittle them down. And I mean, shotgun shells are not nearly as valuable as grenade shells. And you want to try and pick up the acid rounds for this section. I mean, you could use it with a lesser weapon, but it's going to be a lot more difficult because we're going to be facing the Yawn again. And this is, well, I was reading quite a bit around like the different, not strategies, how is it? Like different events that can happen through the playthrough. Because I remember someone saying, or reading online, I should say, that if you get hit by the Yawn in the second fight, then you have to do the whole Serum run if you didn't get hit by him from the first fight, which is absolute bullshit. Not the case at all. It doesn't seem to like register it. But if you look at the Yawn, you can see there's some like damage on his head, which I don't think was there the first time we faced him. So the game kind of expected you to fight him the first time round. And we're just going to just give him a little bit of damage with the acid rounds. And with the acid rounds, he is really not that difficult. Very, very tough on the Chris Redfield playthrough, but with the acid rounds, a complete pushover.
Jill, have you found anything interesting?
Yes, but I can't see very well.
How about going down to check by yourself? I have a rope here.
Oh, do you? Well, then I'll try to go down using the rope.
Wait.
Hey, what's going on?
Now I've done it. Sorry, Jill. Wait. I'll go and get another rope.
Barry? Barry?
Now, if you want the good ending for Jill Valentine, what you want to do is not move from this spot. If you end up carrying on forward, it changes a few events later on, and we're not going to get the canonical good ending. It's not the best choreographed, really. Like, you wouldn't expect that it actually has an impact, but staying here, well, not only does it give you the good ending, but there's an entire section we get to skip out, so that's good for us.
Hey! Are you there, Jill? Grab the rope! I'm sorry, Jill.
I didn't know that was going to happen.
Sorry. I was really careless.
Are you okay, Barry? Maybe you're getting tired.
No, I'm all right. Don't worry. Jill, I found something.
Thank you. I'll take this then.
I do love how they couldn't even be, well, I'm not sure if it's a case of not being bothered or not having the competency or not having the disc base, but they just reused the lines. Thank you. I'll take this then. It's almost like they were purposefully vague with some of them so they could reuse them and kind of piece them together wherever it need to be. It does sometimes come across that and everything was as well thought out as need be. I don't know what the original Japanese version is like. Obviously, I'm only familiar with the westernized version, so I wouldn't be able to tell you whether it was the original Capcom or where they signed it over. Anyway, we're gonna just see if we can get this hunter to come out from his corner, and then by walking down the stairs we can take him out without having to fear any reprisal. So if we had carried on after we got led down the hole by Barry, it would take us to the new area that we need to explore. However, because we've waited for him to come back, the pass that he's given us is essentially just another way to get to this area. We are able to bypass a whole basement section, which admittedly can be quite tricky. If you want to see what that section looks like, and there is a very unique musical score for that area as well. You can always look at my Chris Redfield playthrough to see that, and I was quite fortunate actually. That hunter went down with just one bazooka round. The acid rounds are very, very effective against these guys, so I'm going to kind of make use of them. And that's what I mean with why it can be quite dangerous with the shotgun. If they do that sort of leaping attack, they can completely bypass you. But that's why specifically when he was getting up, we moved slightly to the left, or well, to his right, so that if he did do the leaping attack, it should miss us. The shotgun, I mean, you can use the shotgun to take out the hunters, especially when we've been using the stairs and whatnot previously. It can be quite risky. As you can see, even though they do get stun locked by the shotgun, there seems to be a very narrow window of opportunity to actually get these shots in. So there's almost like a bit of a grace period. If you knock them over when they're standing back up, there's only a specific point where they can take damage, and if they then instigate like the leap attack they do, then they'll just avoid your damage entirely. And that's what makes them quite deadly, is those large leap attacks. They can just dodge your bullets like they're in the fucking Matrix, even though you're firing buckshot. I mean, admittedly, it's a very small corridor, so I suppose the buckshot wouldn't scatter too much just yet, but yeah, hunters are a big threat, and probably the biggest threat you're going to come across. Like that little guy who wants to jump out and spook you, but yeah, relatively short work with the acid rounds. Another thing to be wary about with the acid rounds is that they have travel time, unlike with your shotguns and whatnot, which are instantaneous kind of hit scans. They don't really have projectiles. Whereas the acid rounds, if you fire and they do a leap attack, then, well, similar to the shotgun, they can dodge it. And they tend to have a much easier time dodging your grenades than your shotgun rounds. But if you're fortunate enough to kind of catch them unawares like I've just done there, you can dispense them relatively easy. It probably seems like, oh my god, these hunters are complete pushovers. Trust me, they're not. They are really, really fucking dangerous. The first couple of walkthroughs I tried doing this, as I mentioned before, this was the first one I did. Yeah, I got beheaded. I underestimated them to my own detriment, and Jill lost her head instead of being a Jill sandwich. So this room is completely optional, but we're going to pick up a few goodies in here and this file on the table. Orders. Top secret. July 22nd, 1998, 2:13. To the head of the security department. X day is approaching. Complete the following orders within the week. Lure the members of STARS into the lab and have them fight with the BOW in order to obtain data of actual battles. Collect 2 embryos per BOW type, making sure to include all species except for Tyrant. Destroy the Arklay lab, including all researchers and lab animals, in a manner which will seem accidental. So yeah, a little bit of intrigue there. So it's not just the case that everything has gone wrong. It seems as if it's been manufactured by a certain someone. How on earth they were able to manufacture it in such a way? I mean, as I've mentioned before, the Keeper's Diary happened 2 days before the Plant 42. Like, there's a lot that managed to happen in a short space of time, but we're just going to assume that he was able to do it. And fortunately, we don't have to remember the passcode that Barry Burton gave us. It will just automatically enter it for us. And there's a few zombies to take out, so shotgun is going to be our best bet for him. Always found that quite creepy as well. There's this that kind of noise they make is the sound of them eating on a corpse. And I don't know, it doesn't sound as you would imagine, like with more modern horror games, if you have like a zombie or some kind of monster like eating someone or charning into them, it's a much more like kind of wet and ripping sound rather than just but again, it kind of brings back to the fact that the zombies don't walk right, that the sound doesn't seem right, which somehow just makes it spookier for me. I don't know, maybe it's just like that kind of uncanny valley-ness aspect to it, that it's not quite what it's meant to be, and that somehow makes it creepier. I was a really I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and there was a really strange concept that they brought up to me, and it's the fact that, you know, the whole idea of uncanny valley, for those of you who aren't aware, is when you come across something that looks very similar to humans but isn't quite human enough. So for instance, I know at the moment they're kind of doing a lot of research and engineering into making like sex dolls, for lack of a better term, but you know, there's other kind of stuff where they make or I suppose a better way of saying it is when you have like CGI like Beowulf or something, or when you have kind of like stop motion capture where it's very, very close to what you would imagine them to look like but not quite right, and you get this sense of uncanniness that this uncanny valley idea that I'm referring to. And she was saying, is it not creepy that somewhere in our evolutionary history there something occurred that we have this inbuilt into us, that we are wary of something that almost perfectly mimics humans, but not quite? Because that's the only reason why you would have that, and that's creepy to think about. Anyways, scrapbook, Raccoon Times, May 27th, 1998. Animal attack, woman mutilated. May 20th, around 10 p.m, a 20-year-old young woman's body was found by a passerby on the left bank of Marble River in the Cider district of Raccoon City. Raccoon police assume it to be a grizzly or other animal's doing because there are teeth marks along her mutilated arms and left foot that show considerable power. Since she was wearing a hiking boot on her remaining foot, it has been determined that she was attacked in the Arklay Mountains and fell into the river. They are hurrying to identify this woman. Raccoon Weekly, June 16th, 1998. Monsters in Arklay Mountains? Some people claim they've seen monsters in the Arklay Mountains. The monsters are supposedly about the same size as large dogs and usually run in a pack as wolves do. This may sound like a group of ordinary wild dogs, but these monsters are surprisingly fierce and hard to hunt. They say these dogs won't bother you unless you wake them, so you smart readers should stay out of the Arklay Mountains for the time being. But if you're looking for adventure, check it out. You want to try? Raccoon Times, July 9th, 1998. Mystery on Arklay Mountains. Mountain road blocked. Due to successive disasters in the Arklay Mountains, the city authorities have decided to block the road leading to the foothills. At the same time, Raccoon police intend to begin the search for lost people with the help of STARS team members. They expect great difficulty because of the vast size of the Arklay Mountains and the primeval forest that covers most of the area. Also, people are still reporting sightings of grotesque monsters in the mountains. I always found that particular article, or series of articles I should say, just fucking bizarre. Can you imagine, especially in America, like the amount of libel you would be responsible for if you wrote an article saying that people were being attacked in the mountains and you mention, oh, maybe you want to go out and try there and see what you can find out. Like, if someone was stupid enough to actually do that, you would get sued so hard Whether or not they would be successful is another matter entirely, but why the fuck would you write that? How did they get past editorial? And the way that they're describing how the characters were, not the characters, sorry, the young lady was like mauled to death. I mean, I don't know, maybe the way things are reported over there is different, but would you really go into that much detail, like citing specifically mauled on the left foot and stuff? Like, would the police give the press that information? But anyway, from the room where we read the orders and we turned the light out, we got the second jewel, the red jewel, and here's where we make use of it. Completely optional. That room in its entirety is completely optional, from reading the orders to getting the items in there. But that's 18 Magnum rounds that we're going to be getting from going in there. So there really isn't much point not to. It's going to make the latest section of this game significantly easier. And with that Magnum rounds with us, we are almost ready to head into the subterranean section. So we've got the emblem, which we managed to locate from the Red Doom book, which I quite like that. It's something that does recur in some of the later Resident Evils, in that you have to actually check an item and like move around it to actually like interact with it in a certain way. Admittedly, there are times when it seems a little bit just counterintuitive, like almost like they put that there. It's like, oh, we've implemented this feature, we better make use of it. Like, I remember being stuck playing Resident Evil Code Veronica when I was young, because you would come across a briefcase which contains some very useful items, that, like key items that you need to progress. And every time the character would try to open it, they'll be like, oh, it's locked. It won't open. And so I spent ages trying to run around and like, okay, is there like a key for this that I have to combine it with? Is there some way of opening up? No. What you had to do was check the briefcase, rotate it around so that you were viewing it from the top downwards, and then your character, Claire Redfield in this case, goes, oh, there's a button there. If I push this button, the suitcase opens. And I'm just tearing my hair out going, are you fucking dumb or just some kind of special? That you don't know how to open a motherfucking briefcase. Like, the way it was worded just made it seem like there was some kind of lock or something, but it's no. Claire Redfield, someone who is I believe in the storyline, she's like a college student at the time of everything going down. So you would assume she'd be, you know, reasonably intelligent. She's already survived one zombie apocalypse. She knows how to handle a grenade launcher despite being a fucking teenage or young 20-year-old something girl, but she doesn't know how to open a motherfucking suitcase. And this in particular on the Code Veronica is after she has infiltrated a top secret research facility and blown up about 10 people by doing some fucking Matrix style drop the gun shoot barrel nonsense, but she doesn't know how to open a motherfucking briefcase. Like, sorry, I should probably actually go on that rant when I do the walkthrough for that and not in this one, but it's just so retarded. But yes, with the emblem, we will need it later on. What we're going to do for the time being though is we just need to pick it up. So when we went up where the scrapbook is, we have our battery and we have the emblem, and we're going to need both of those. The emblem we don't need just yet, so we're just going to put that away in the item box. Equip our grenade launcher, because we're going to be having to face a lot more hunters, unfortunately, and we are no longer have acid rounds to deal with. We do have Magnum rounds, and you can use that. I do think the Magnum is probably a better weapon for it, but I like to use one bulk of one type of ammunition before moving on to the next. So later on, you're going to be doing a lot of running around, and I quite like having the Magnum rounds. That way you just have the Magnum and the Magnum rounds in the second slot, and it takes up 2 slots, gives you a little bit more freedom with what to work with. And we're not going to be coming back to the mansion after we leave for the second time, so in the case of that hunter, normally I would make sure that I kill them before you move on, just so, I mean, you've had to use some rounds to actually take them out, but if we're not coming back here, we can just kind of run past them. So the 2 key items you need to get through to this area is the crank that we got earlier and the battery. So we're just going to progress through this normally, and we're basically going to do a little bit of a loop round to come back upwards to it. Just to try and save on some of the inventory spaces we have, which again, not too much of an issue with Jill Valentine, but definitely with Chris Redfield. I haven't picked the handgun up, which means there are unfortunately a few dogs, or zombie dogs, or I believe the correct name are Cerberuses, because they like to name their creatures after mythical creatures. It's just kind of a thing I find of Resident Evil games. Not just Resident Evil games, I think just Japanese games in general. I know House of the Dead usually names their bosses after like tarot cards. And what do you mean I can't use it? You have to be very, very fine with putting the battery in for this to actually work. So this is going to bring us back up to where the dogs are earlier. So we're going to need to be doing our best serpentine maneuvers to avoid taking any damage from the dogs. And there's a map here on the side which I haven't picked up because I didn't really need to. And we're just going to quickly run through these guys. And we want to put the crank back into what we originally came up here for. And I suppose that's kind of like another area that the game gives you a few hints as to in terms of the game mechanics. Again, when you're younger and you end up keep getting lost at what you meant to do, and with a game like this, you probably save it, you come back a week later and you've completely forgotten it all. It doesn't help too much, but with the keys, when you use them, and when you've used them for the last time, it will say, okay, this key is no longer worthwhile, do you want to discard it? So the fact that we've used the crank to lower to open the drawer gate and to basically make the water go down, it doesn't say, okay, you've used it now, do you want to get rid of it? It kind of gives you a little bit of information that you will have to use it again. And the fact that you can use it on the same spot should also give you kind of a bit of an information saying, okay, maybe I may have to use it again in the same way. So you open and lower the drawbridge. So, and that's the whole reason why you have this elevator here. You need to lower the drawbridge so that the water isn't rushing down, which will open up this entrance, because apparently Jill was too much of a pussy just to walk through the waterfall. And so we need the battery on the elevator to circumvent that so we can get down here. And we're in the subterranean section. And what I would say is probably the last third, roughly speaking, of the game at this point.
Oh, Jill, what good timing. A moment ago I heard someone's voice coming from this hole. Let's go together since it's dark and we can't see very well.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, then I'm gonna cover you. Let's hurry. Hey, are you all right? I can go first if you want me to.
Okay, let's go, Barry. I'm depending on you.
So if you want the good ending for this game, it's very important that you say yes and then no. If you say yes and yes, Barry will go forward and then you'll hear gunshots and he will have been shot. If you say yes and no, which is what we're doing at the moment, he just follows us around, and that's the easiest way to make sure he doesn't end up getting killed. If you say no and then yes, he will disappear, and it's the same as if you hadn't climbed back up when he dropped the rope down. And if you say no and no, there'll be a gunshot and he'll die the same as if you said yes and yes. So apparently when you say no and no, there is a way that if you're quite careful with it that he can survive, but it's best just to say yes and no and not have to worry about any kind of difficulties with him dying. And the reason he will be shot is because there is a character in here known as Enrico, and if he goes by himself, Enrico panics and shoots him.
Is that Jill?
Is that voice Enrico's?
Yeah?
You're alive!
Wait there! Are you with anybody, Jill?
What? Oh, yes.
Enrico!
So, Barry and Jill together.
Are you all right, Enrico?
The stars are doomed. Someone is a traitor. Everything was plotted from the start by Umbrella. Ha!
So yeah, these are two absolutely expert police officers slash special force star members. Someone's managed to sneak up behind them, shoot Enrico, and then run off like some kind of Saturday morning cartoon villain without them even noticing. So the reason we had to be very specific about how we worded it earlier is Enrico is fully aware that there is a traitor amongst the Stars team. And since he doesn't know who the traitor is, he suspects that, well, it'll be pretty much anyone. So in an alternative versions when you play through this, if you did follow at the bottom when Barry lowered the rope down, you will come across Enrico, and Enrico will think that you're the traitor, and he'll go to shoot you, but then he gets shot by a mysterious figure in the background. If Barry goes off by himself, I'm just gonna run past these hunters. It's a little bit easier than having to fight them. If Barry goes by himself, Enrico will see Barry, assume that he's the traitor, and fire. Basically, he's just paranoid at this point and will shoot pretty much anyone on sight. So the only way to make sure that Enrico doesn't try and kill either you or Barry is if you both turn up at the same time. And he assumes that if the two of you are together, then you can't both be traitors, I'm guessing. Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because how on earth he knows or thinks that there's only one traitor when it could be several? I don't know, it doesn't really explore that much. Or maybe it's just kind of a case of, he's like, okay, if there's two people here, even if I do think that both of them are traitors, at this point there's no way I can get out of the situation alive, so I might as well at least try and work with them or play dumb. It's the only thing I can think of, but yeah, pretty much you want to keep Barry with you at all costs. So after Enrico gets shot, you'll pick up the crank, which lets us proceed forward. And we're just going to activate this boulder, and I mean, you can probably kind of tell how we do it. We just move to the side as it rolls past, and it opens up the entrance for us. It's really not, I mean, it's not difficult to not fuck up, but I mean, you will die in one hit if you're not careful. And yeah, if you go to pick up the grenade rounds at the back here, a hunter will come out, but we can deal with him without too much problem. This whole cave section is absolutely filled with hunters, which can be that's fortunate I didn't do a jump attack. Yeah, try and time it when they're doing the jump attacks to hit them as they land, but yeah, as you can see, sometimes it doesn't always work out as intended. But jibbing with pixelated graphics as it always looks weird. So fortunately there's a limit to kind of how the explosive damage works, so fortunately we can't hurt ourselves with it. And now there's epic music because there's a giant tarantula in here, which actually has quite a nasty triple kind of acid range attack, and takes a little bit of a pounding, but nothing too difficult. Now after you kill the spider, you want to immediately leave, because from her or its corpse, I mean, I'm assuming it has to be a her if there's so many baby spiders, tons of baby spiders will come out. So you want to wait for those baby spiders to spawn, because I've noticed sometimes if you leave beforehand, it won't register as the spider being killed. You come back and you have to kill it again. And you don't want to leave until you've, well, finished it off. Like, you don't want to injure it and come back. You can't just whittle it down. You have to kill it all in one go. And now to get through the webbing here, we need to stab it a bit with the knife, which is why we want to leave the room and come back, because you don't want to have to be dealing with a shit ton of baby spiders trying to jump at you when you're trying to cut that off, because it does take a little while and you're gonna get hurt. It's just not to deal with it. Just reset the room. And it's quite fortunate that, well, not fortunate, but nice of the developers that they were kind enough to give us a knife there, because otherwise you'd have to backtrack all the way back to pick up a knife from a safe room. And as you can see, there's one here, which means the previous one is miles away. And there's probably a shit ton of hunters between you and there, which you don't want to have to deal with if that's all we can avoid it. So now we're at this point, we're going to pick up the emblem that we grabbed earlier. And there is a first aid sprayed on the table and some green herbs on the side if you are injured at all, especially after you've just had to deal with the spider fight. It can be quite dangerous through here, actually. The spiders, as you can probably imagine from them shooting kind of like an acidic, venomous spray at you, you can get poisoned from them. So if that happens, just make sure you have a few blue herbs lying around to deal with that. And much like previously, for some strange reason, the boulders won't move until you get close, and then when you do, doing that seems to trigger them to start rolling onwards. It's a bit of a weird trigger, but same as last time, just move out of the way, let it go past. If you're not careful, although you shouldn't really be getting hit, you know, taken out by a boulder. I think all of us have seen Indiana Jones. You should have a decent idea of how to deal with giant boulders, is to not be underneath them. If they do manage to catch you, it is a one-hit kill, so just be wary of that. And similar with earlier where we got the red Doom book, there is a blue Doom book, so just check it in the same way. Open up the pages, and we have the eagle and the wolf medal or medallion. I think it's just called a medal, even though it looks like a medallion, which is what we will need to open up the final section, or sorry, the final section of the caves, I should say. Now, quite similar to how we had it earlier, we're going to need to use the crank on here to move it around. Unlike the other time, however, where you just did it automatically, you want to keep twisting this round so that the hole ends up on the left-hand side, which will open up a new area. How on earth... I mean, you know, you could probably say there's gears and winches and whatnot, but how on earth... One, how the fuck someone designed this? Two, how on earth Jill has the strength to be able to rotate an entire fucking room around is anyone's guess, but this was 1996. Video games weren't always... It's only had some interesting logic, especially the way the hole is. It looks as if like the room is there, because it's like, you know, a little bit of a lighter bluey green shade almost. So it's like you're moving the whole thing around. I don't know, it's weird geometry and geometrics. So you want to move the statue over over to the left-hand side, which is admittedly not too easy to see from just looking at that. But if we then use the crank again, we'll be able to push it out, and that's the only way that we can actually move the statue around, because it starts off on the side of the wall like that. You can only push statues, you can't pull them, which makes no fucking sense. Like, like. Surely you could pull that, like, I don't know. And by moving it over to the slightly different coloured piece of flooring, that will open up the switch there, which gives us the key, which we'll need for the final section, which is the lab area. Yeah, it always seemed kind of contrived that you're fighting more the controls than any kind of logic. Like, you could easily just pull the goddamn statue. But I think normally you go in there, you'll see there's a crank. Like, oh, you put the crank in, and then you see that it will push open a section of the wall, and then you work it out from there. That's where you're meant to go, because actually knowing where that section of wall is, it's not very clear. You can't really tell too well, but I guess you just expect it through trial and error. It wouldn't have taken you too long to figure it out. So a lovely assortment of herbs here, and blue ones as well, if you have been unfortunate enough to be poisoned by the or toxinified. Been hit by venom, which causes poison in the game. There we go. Trying to make sure that's accurate. It's not poison. It's really not. I mean, if you got poisoned by some of the plants, okay, you could say poison. But if it's from being shot at by a giant fuck-off spider, you would call it venom. And apparently both the spiders and the venom... Sorry, both the spiders and the plants use the same kind of poison/venom, or the blue herb is just a wonder drug that pharmaceutical companies should really be using because it cures all kinds of toxins. Like, Umbrella's meant to be a pharmaceutical company. Like, do you have any idea how much like money Big Pharma makes? Especially in like 1998. If you find a plant growing in some, you know, backwaters mountain town which can cure literally fucking any kind of toxins, why are you making BOWs? That shit's like the magic bullet. Use it, man. You're trying to make money by making monsters? Like, that cannot be a lucrative market by any stretch of the imagination. Who the fuck is your buyer? I mean, how many international laws are you at risk of breaking? I mean, Geneva Convention for one, to create it. Like, you get really strong Weyland-Yutani vibes from the Umbrella Corporation, and a lot of times it just comes across as an excuse to have, like, an interesting bestiary of monsters. Because, you have the trope of the mad scientist who's just creating for the sake of creating, but it's a whole fucking business, and surely they have investors and a bottom line to meet. Like, they want to be making money. You have blue herbs here that are apparently a wonder drug. You make fucking millions from it. Why are you creating fucking monsters? and I get there's, kind of a logical explanation. Hey, baby, a double behind it. Like, if you start looking into some of the more other Resident Evil the games, especially with number 9, I think it's Spencer. Like, a big idea behind it is that they want to be able to basically create immortality and become like a superhuman and stuff, which is sort of what ends up happening to Wesker towards Resident Evil 5. And I get that, so I can understand them creating these tyrant monsters because you're trying to understand the human genome better, manipulate it better. I get that. Zombies, I get. You're trying to basically overcome death, so it makes sense that you're trying to fuck with that. But hunters, monsters, things that tear people apart, what's going on? Anyways, researcher's letter, June 8th, 1998. Dear Ada, by the time you read this, I'll be something different. Today's test turned out to be positive, just as I expected. I feel like going crazy when I think about becoming one of them. Ada, you're not infected, and I hope you never will be. In case you are the last one left, take the material in the visual data room and go to the power room to operate the triggering system before you escape, and make all this public through the media. If everything is in order, all the locks can be opened by the security system. You can access the system if you log in with my name from the terminal in the small lab and enter the password. The password is your name. To unlock the door at B2 where the visual data room is located, you'll need to access with our name first and then enter another password. I've written the code below. I'm sure you'll understand it easily. And this is my last hope. If you find me completely changed, please kill me yourself. So I quite like the continuity you get with that. So for those of you familiar with the Resident Evil franchise, you should be well known that Ada is a character who ends up becoming maybe not the most prominent character, but she is a recurring character. She's in Resident Evil 2, she crops up in Resident Evil 4, she crops up in a few bits and bobs here and there. Ada Wong. Now, I don't know if they intended her to be the kind of spy that she is right from the start when you find that file. I don't know if that was something that they kind of, changed around later on. Like, maybe she was originally meant to be a researcher, but they just found a way to incorporate her later on. But in the second game, when you play through as Leon S. Kennedy, you end up coming across Ada, who is trying to investigate what's gone on with all the mansions, everything, all the shit that's gone down. And part of her storyline is the fact that she's looking for John. So I do like that the fact that they managed to keep that as an aspect of her character. It may have been retconned slightly, but I appreciate like the little touch like that. Like, it was just originally a single note that you come across in the first game, and they managed to move that on and create an entire character around her. So this puzzle here is quite similar to the one that we used to come across the key early on, in that if you do not cover the grates with the boxes, then gas will seep out and you'll be killed. And I find this one is a lot more dangerous than the first one, because you can activate it just by accidentally walking across it and knocking it. So that's why if you're wondering why I'm kind of faffing a little bit, I was being very cautious not to accidentally catch it with either the stairs or the boxes, because, well, it would be awkward to die to something like that, because you can't get out of the room quick enough. Well, the whole room's filled up with gas anyway, so you wouldn't be able to go back in. So yeah, the whole the whole area just gets fucked up. And I do find the zombies in here, there's something very haunting about them. The kind of moan that they make is a lot more, I guess, almost like sorrowful or sad, like more so than the earlier zombies. Anyways, passcode 02. I will surely bless you and make your descendant as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies. Genesis 22:17. So we're just gonna make our way through, just on the edge of that shift in the camera there, and yeah, that's what I mean. Just it's almost like a whine. It's less bloodthirsty and gargling, and more just, I know, it just makes you think of like the inhabitants of that zombie before they got transformed. And you know, I know I've shit talked quite a few points about this game, mostly some of the logic here and there, and definitely the voice acting, but there are just so many parts to it that just really stand out even after all these years. I mean, I still consider it, you know, I mean, it's obviously a really good game. It's like the whole fucking Resident Evil franchise. Like, it's damn good, and there's like little points like that even after all these years stick out to me. But yeah, this is the computer. So as we saw from the note earlier, the username is John and the password is Ada, which I'm fairly certain you wouldn't get away with that anymore, would you? Like, one thing they always say is never make your password like a close loved one or something, so it's easy to hack. And especially you wouldn't make your password Ada. Like, that is way too weak. If someone was trying to hack into you and you have a 3-digit like password, that ain't gonna last. That's gone very, very quickly. And the final password we have to use, I do like a little hand movements, bingo, is Mole. And if you're wondering how the fuck did we get Mole, so earlier on when we first came into the room with that researcher letter, there was a painting on the wall of Adam and Eve with the original sin and the apple, and there was 4 words on it, and originally they come across as symbols, and then when you turn on the light, those symbols change into words like apple, tree, etc, etc. So at the end of the researcher's note, you'll have 4 symbols, and the key is to look at what those 4 symbols are on the painting, like, and where those positions are. And then when you turn the light on, it gives you the 4 letters that come up. So you want to look at what the symbols have. Well, the symbols have changed into like letters, and so you want to see what those symbols were, and then use that to translate it to come up with the password. Which I like that. It's quite a simple one. Like, it's not something that's, you know, like absolutely, you don't need like a PhD in quantum mechanics to be able to understand what's going on, but it's enough of a brain teaser, a brain tester, to actually make you think rather than just blindly going through the game. And I miss puzzles like that, and it's not just insanely bullshit like certain survival horror games that I'm not going to mention, like where even when you know what the answer is, you're like, how the fuck? Facts. To General Management of Sanitation Division, from Special Committee on Disasters, Raccoon Special Research Department. This memorandum is strictly confidential and must be destroyed as soon as this is understood. Regarding the T-virus outbreak which occurred recently, this committee conducted a field survey. According to the results, estimates on the amount of damage caused by the accident are considerably greater than reported earlier. First, although it is very difficult to obtain accurate data in terms of actual numbers, it is thought that more than half of the researchers died after exposure to the T-virus. The body count will almost likely increase since nearly all of the survivors show symptoms peculiar to the T-virus. Second, our security system is still in operation. However, our special security guard squad has been nearly destroyed. Because of that, research information considered by our company to be top secret has been made available to outsiders. Countermeasures should be taken as soon as possible. Finally, many of the subjects from the experiments have escaped and are out of control. We believe that some of the researchers were killed by these subjects and their bodies mutilated. By curious coincidence, these events are proof of the success of our research. However, there is also a very high risk that this news may be leaked to the press if we don't act immediately. The condition is very serious. Our operation to cover up the situation is difficult to attain, however we hope the problem will be solved quickly. We are especially concerned that the state police and STARS are intervening too quickly. We need to act on this situation as well. And just because we picked it up as you're reading through that, passcode 01. I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and you have not withheld your son, your only son. Genesis 22:16. So yeah, just a bit of a slideshow foreshadowing the arrival of the tyrant later on that we've heard a few times up until this point. The names of the monsters we faced so far, and a researcher who wears sunglasses even whilst inside like an absolute douchebag. Anyway, security system. Basement level 1. Helicopter port. Executive and government officials only on helicopter port. This restriction may not apply in case of an accident. Passage to the helicopter. No one is allowed to enter unless they are attended by a research consultant or security director. All others will be shot on sight. Elevator. The elevator stops during all emergencies. Basement level 2. Visual data room. Visual data room is within the control of Special Research Division. Keith arriving. The room manager is designated to have jurisdiction over room usage. Basement level 3. Prison. Sanitation Division controls the usage of the prison. Consultant researchers E. Smith, S. Ross, and A. Wesker must be present if virus is used. Triple lockdown. No one is allowed to enter unless he presents all passcode documents. Passcode documents must be created by the specialized output machine by the chief researcher of each block. Power room. Only headquarters supervisors may enter. This restriction may not apply in the consultant researcher has received special instructions. Passcode output machine. No one is allowed to use the passcode output machine but the chief researchers. Basement level 4. Top secret. Regarding the progress of Tyrant after the use of T-Virus. Remaining document is unreadable. So as if we didn't have enough information already pointing us to the fact that Albert Wesker is the spy or the traitor of STARS team. So we have him acting sketchy as fuck. We have ominous music play when he appears. We have a picture of him being one of the head researchers, and admittedly you can't tell too well because it's, you know, it looks as if it was kind of scaled up from a real life picture, and then they've kind of artificially put Wesker into it with the with him looking like that. And obviously he doesn't look a thing like the model in game because it's so pixelated at the time, but they made sure that he's wearing sunglasses even when inside to give it away. And then reading through that file, obviously one of the head researchers is called A. Wesker. So we know pretty much as a foregone conclusion at this point, if you've been reading through the files, which admittedly I didn't, first time I went through, that Wesker is actually a researcher here and has been working with Umbrella for some time, and most likely is the one that instigated everything to go wrong, because it does seem as if this whole area has been sabotaged for the outbreak to occur. So it's all part of Wesker's master plan, which Wesker kind of gets into a spot of bother towards the end of this particular game, and I'm not sure again if it's a case like Ada, whether they had already planned it out or if it was just meant to be originally his comeuppance of like this arrogant character and then kind of retroactively retconned it later again with Ada. Maybe Ada was meant to be a researcher originally and they turned her into spy. I don't know, but we're just going to pretend that they had it all planned out right from the start. Like in Harry Potter, when suddenly the invisibility cloak was a Deathly Hallows the whole time. Like, no retconning going on there. But this section is possibly the most frustrating section of the game, and it's specifically why I've been saving all of the Magnum rounds up until this point. So you have to go through this engine room, and the engine room is crawling with these enemies known as Chimera. I'll just quickly pick up the final passcode. passcode 03, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me. Genesis 22:18. So reading all 3 passcodes through, it gives this quote from Genesis. I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this, and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you, and make your descendant as numerous as the stars in the sky, and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me. Yeah, Japan gets a bit weird when it comes to religious allegories, whenever it tries to do anything from a Western background. Just have to watch Evangelion to know about that. But yeah, these chimeras that litter the generator room are the absolute bane of my existence. You'll probably notice I miss quite a few shots on them. When they jump up and when they're doing a lot of their movements, there seems to be a lot of frames where they can't take damage, and it's very easy to miss shots on them. When they're on the ceiling, they can kind of pull their claws down and do kind of a sweep attack on you and get a nasty bit of damage in. I remember the very first time I was playing through this and I was trying to go for a no-hit run. These motherfucking chimeras are the whole reason it took so long. Every time I would get to the generator room and they would just fuck me up. And even if you try running past them, because they kind of cling from the ceiling and they sweep their claws below you, if you try and run past them, they'll still tag you. So they're annoying because you don't really get much practice at fighting them. This final section of the game is the only time that you come across them, and as far as I'm aware, I don't really think they show up in any other Resident Evil games that I can think of. I think you get I think it's called a Drain Demos in Resident Evil 3, which is kind of meant to be kind of related to them, possibly, but other than that, yeah, they don't really turn up again, and they're fucking annoying.
Jill! Jill! You're here too!
Yes, you're here too?
Look, I lost my way.
Let's get going.
So because we have done all the prerequisites for the best ending, we're going to get a bit of a cutscene here, which would have played out much differently. So, well, you can wait and see.
Wesker?
You did a fine job, Barry.
Just as I thought.
I think you should stay away from Barry, Jill. I hear that his wife and 2 daughters will be in danger if he doesn't do everything I tell him to.
You are so cruel.
Well, you don't have to worry about anything, because you'll be free from this world very soon, Jill.
Why do you have to destroy stars?
That's Umbrella's intention. This laboratory has been engaging in dangerous experiments, and recently an accident has occurred. Anyway, this disaster cannot be made public.
That's why having stars nosing about is so inconvenient. So you're a slave of Umbrella now, along with these virus monsters.
I think you misunderstand me, Jill. To me, the monsters you mention mean nothing. I'm going to burn all of them together with this entire laboratory. I must complete my mission, as ordered by Umbrella. Barry, go up on the ground and wait there.
Barry!
Barry's such a fool. He'll be under the control of Umbrella forever.
How come both Umbrella and you can intimidate him by taking his family as hostages?
Umbrella? Well, I intimidated him, but it had nothing to do with Umbrella. I just used him for my personal purposes, though both you and Barry seem to think I was following orders from Umbrella.
So you're planning something else?
If you succeeded in developing the world's most powerful biological weapon, what would you do? What if you were in charge?
You must stop this now.
You're a brave girl, but if I were you, I wouldn't give up such a big discovery. You guys are idiots. No one understands its real value.
So, you're going to steal all the research?
Better yet, I'm going to show you the tyrant.
Oh! Barry!
Sorry, Jill.
How is your family?
I was listening to what you and Wesker were talking about. I wish I realized it earlier. I thought it must have something to do with Umbrella, you know. So it's all been masterminded by him.
But it's good that you know that now. Anyway, let's get out of this house first.
Jill!
Yes, what?
Do you have any idea what Wesker was going to show you at the back of this place?
Well, he was talking about the world's most powerful biological weapon, called Tyrant or something, I think.
Do you think we could see Tyrant now?
Barry, you're so optimistic.
It would look bad for Stars if we let such a dangerous creature run loose.
Maybe you're right. Let's go then.
I swear some of the dialogue makes me feel like I'm having a fucking stroke. What do you mean he's optimistic because he wants to see him? What the fuck are you talking about? What?
Can a creature like this really be the ultimate biological weapon?
Really? Wesker is a crazy man.
Tyrant is not completely developed.
But we can't let it live. That must be the computer for monitoring this creature. Damn you!
It can't control what it does.
So they really tried to crank up the B-grade movie feel at this point to the 11th degree, with everyone just acting so nonsensical for the plot to move forward. But the fight here with Tyrant, I mean, you can barely even call it a fight. It doesn't have any kind of moves or attacks. All it's going to do is very slowly walk towards you. And if you get too close, it will deal some damage. So, I mean, if you came in here, you didn't have much ammunition, it might be a problem. But all you want to do is just keep running around it. Just keep your distance and slowly whittle it down. And it's not going to run after you. It's really barely even a fight. And yeah, the ominous music has stopped, so we know that the Tyrant has been defeated.
Barry? Barry? You're alive!
I'm really embarrassed. I was clumsy.
Let's get going.
So yeah, even though we saw some blood come out when the Tyrant attacked Barry, he's none worse for wear. He's just a little bit embarrassed. Maybe he's got a little bit of a concussion from being hit on the side wall, but nothing that he needs medical attention for.
What happened to Wesker?
Wesker must have set it off. There's not much time left for us.
Now, you'd think, considering the situation they're in, I guess they're still trying to be the good guys. That's why they just knocked him out. But would you not just shoot Wesker in the back of the head? Like, he's killed so many people, and in that kind of situation where everything's just completely foobar, or at least, like, handcuff him or tie him up to something. Don't just whack him out. People don't stay unconscious for long. It's not like in the movies. Like, they wake up quite quickly. So that's basically what you get with the good ending is Barry, who's being manipulated by Wesker, realizes that, I guess kind of realizes that it's a bit of a hollow threat and turns against him. If you don't do that, either he's already been shot by Enrico if you didn't say the right options, the yes, the no earlier in the caves, or if you carried on and didn't wait for the rope to be brought down, he ends up not overhearing the conversation. You go in the room where the tyrant is, escorted by Wesker. Wesker gets stabbed and appears, in quotation marks, appears to take fatal damage from the tyrant. You run out, find that Barry's been wounded either by one of the monsters or maybe Wesker shot him. Says, oh, you know, I'm really sorry I messed up. Tell my wife and kids and stuff, and ends up dying. So the only other part we have to do to get the good ending is to go and free our good pal Chris Redfield, who in this particular playthrough has been locked up the whole time. So the MO disc that we ended up picking up back in the mansion was what we needed to use to get the free passcodes for the Genesis. I don't know why they would do that. I don't even know why they'd have a fucking prison here. I guess to detain people whenever there's been some experiments. So we activate the free passcodes we've come across up until this point, which opens up the prison, and we can go see our good partner, who we haven't seen for the entire game, but shows up right at the end.
Oh, Jill!
Oh, Chris! So you're okay?
Yeah, you too! What happened to Wesker?
Let's talk about it later. Let's get out of here.
So yeah, we're just going to move forward and he's just going to run off ahead. So it's a little bit strange. If you don't get the proper bad ending, the mansion doesn't even blow up. You just fly away and it's just like, well, great, the whole place is still infested with zombies and whatnot. I mean, you know, the events of Resident Evil 2 and 3 do end up happening anyway, so it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. But I always find it weird is that even... Okay, admittedly I haven't played through the remake yet, but I've researched it a bit.
Let's go!
The endings of this game and the remake on either characters are technically not the correct canonical endings. So when you play through as Jill Valentine, obviously you have Barry Burton with you who helps you through. And if you play through as Chris Redfield, you end up having Rebecca Chambers, who is like your partner and helps you through it. So what ends up happening is if you play as Jill Valentine, you can save yourself, Barry Burton and Chris Redfield. And if you play through as Chris Redfield, you end up saying Rebecca Chambers, Jill Valentine, and that's it. So Jill Valentine can't escape with Rebecca Chambers, and Chris Redfield can't escape with Barry Burton. Like, they don't even appear in the campaigns. And I always thought they were going to rectify that with the remake. And again, I haven't played through it, but I've heard that they didn't. And I always found that strange, that the actual endings are not canonically correct.
Let's go!
Did they just fucking reuse the same line again? Yeah, quite strangely enough, if you get some of the bad endings, the final fight, you don't even have to do. The tyrant won't show up on the roof. So it's easier to get the bad endings than it is to get the good. And yeah, we're just gonna make our way to the roof with our two big strapping lads helping us through.
This is Brad. Running out of fuel. If there is anyone alive, contact me now, okay? This is
There is 3 minutes until explosion.
Oh no, you must be kidding. After we've come all the way here.
Ladies first. Go first, Jill.
But Chris...
Give me a chance to play nice guy.
Okay, I leave it up to you. See you again at the heliport.
It's alright, guys. It's not like the place is about to blow up. You know, we're not in any kind of rush. You know, it's not like we could all very, very easily fit in the elevator. Let's just do a little bit more faffing, shall we? Nothing to worry about. There isn't a nuke that's going to go out. There isn't a helicopter pilot who's running out of fuel. And I have to admit, playing through this for the first time when I came back to it, just how lackadaisical it is. And you just see that timer just ticking away. It's like, come the fuck on, show a little bit of haste in what you're doing. So when we get onto the roof, first thing we're going to do is pick up the flare, and you want to run to the center of the heliport and set this off. And that's going to signal to Brad Vickers to come and pick us up. But obviously it wouldn't be as simple as that. I mean, it is in the some of the other endings. But because we're going for the best ending, the Tyrant isn't dead because the fight we had before was pathetic. So it would have been an embarrassing fight. And we really don't have much time, as you can see, to actually fight him, which I suppose is kind of beneficial to us. At this point, he is a bit of a threat. If you get too far away from him, he'll kind of scrape the floor with his claw, and you'll do like this sprinting attack and come straight after you. And he can do some serious damage if you do let him get close. Look, it's just still faffing. And there he is, making his entrance. Better late than ever. So the idea of dealing with him is actually kind of similar to the idea that you deal with Nemesis in the third one, is that you want to be far enough away that you can get a couple of shots in, but not so far away that he ends up doing his kind of charge attack. So if you just run to the other end of the helipad, he will just start sprinting after you. So you want to keep a good enough distance that he doesn't do that, and then just slowly plug away at him. And it's also a good idea to reload in the inventory screen rather than do the animation, because it takes so long that you're probably going to get hit by it. If you have to run past him, try to run past on the side where the claw isn't, and just keep shooting him, and eventually Brad will drop a rocket launcher, which is what we need to finally take him out. And there it is. So yeah, just have to run over and grab the rocket launcher, and thankfully if you go to pick up the rocket launcher, she doesn't bend down like she would at picking up other items, and you get 4 shots in it, and it's just one hit kill. So but she takes a little time to actually pick it up, so you want to get a little bit of distance. And we were very lucky there. We just fired a rocket at point blank range, but doesn't matter. Tyrant is done and dusted. And just leaving some charred bones there for us, pixelated in all of its glory. And there we are finished with Resident Evil Director's Cut. We get Chris Redfield taking centre stage with Jill resting on him, even though he has done literally fuck all throughout this entire playthrough. But he takes centre stage for some baffling reason. And yeah, Rebecca Chambers, voiced by Linda, who isn't even in this one. We'd have to go through and watch the Chris Redfield to be able to see it. But that is Resident Evil Director's Cut. Thank you very much for watching and listening to me go through this old game. And you can see with some of the bits that are going to play, just some of the alternative scenes that you will be able to see. Like if you meet Barry up on the balcony rather than going on the bottom route. And because we have successfully beaten the game in under 3 hours, as far as I'm aware, that's the only criteria for unlocking the extra stuff. So with some of the later ones, they put in some extra modifiers that you can't use too many healing items, you can't save too often, as well as the fact that you have to do it under the time limit. But as far as I'm aware, all you have to do is beat the campaign in under 3 hours, and you will unlock the unlimited rocket launcher. So if you want to go and blast with it, they did that quite a lot with games back in the day. When you complete it, you unlock something, which don't you just miss those days where everything in the game you could just unlock by playing and didn't have to like pay extra money and DLC to have the privilege of using it? Like, weren't those the days? Back when your main character had about 6 pixels in their face. The golden era of gaming. But yeah, we all finished with that, so thank you very much for watching this, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.